Hello, and welcome back to another Doujinshi reading from White Album 2. Today we are checking out one of the light novels, which has been done by a fan. This one is written by Ushineko. Ushineko is known for his light novels for White Album 2, as opposed to the art doujins. And they are very well written. As you can see here on the cover, we have Kazusa. Kazusa's there on the bottom left. And perhaps a little bit more difficult to recognize, on the top right, we have Koharu. You can see kind of the upper ponytail, but if you squint, it does look like Kazusa as well. But I'm here to tell you, this one is Kazusa and Koharu. A very cool duo, might I add. The art for Ushineko's novels is always so cool and so pretty. It's got like this light painted style and really, really thin line art. Love it. Roving Masters of Music. The Case Files of Kazusa. Great Classics Investigator. Chapter 1. The Missing Score. White Album 2, Post-Setsuna's Ending. Text by Ushineko and illustration by Enna. You will see these two working together in pretty much every single Ushineko novel. They are both big White Album 2 fans, and they are a dynamic duo. I love the way their content is. Editing is by Ruro no Gakushidan. Chapter 1. God, I'm about to flip my lid with this guy. The terrace of a hotel on the banks of the Potomac. She flung her copy of The Washington Post down on the breakfast table between her French toast and latte. The Washington Post. It's funny to read that in a Japanese doujin. I picked it up, opening it to the arts section. There, I found the reviews of her daytime concert from the day before at the Kennedy Center's Terrace Theater. This looks excellent, though. You've got a perfect storm of rave reviews from every critic. Encore aside. Exactly. Look at that last critic's comment in particular. Ah. Him. Him. Of course it's him. Yesterday's concert showcased a phenomenal balance of her peerlessly perfect technique, blazing passion, and occasional glimpses of melancholy through the gaps. However, we still have yet to see her at her peak. Just how far will she continue pushing on? Only time will tell, it says. Yes, it's a little condescending as usual, but it seems positive to me. You didn't have to translate it for me, she muttered, a touch of pink coming into her cheeks. Which reads across as funny because the whole fic is written in Japanese, obviously, yeah, it is originally in Japanese, now it's in English. But the Washington Post is clearly an English publication, so Koharu just went ahead and translated it for her. Yeah, okay. It was a high rating. The arrogance of his phrasing pisses me off, but I'll live. It's what comes after that. The second encore piece, Xena Kisses Herma, was, shall we say, an unexpected present. Listening to contemporary classical music requires a certain amount of mental preparation. To dash cold water over an entire audience of patrons who've been lulled into dreamy satisfaction by the preceding performance is a sort of childish prank that'd be better leashed. She's old enough to know better. Yes, that conclusion is very him. Oh, that's cruel. What a cruel review. What the hell does he mean, old enough? He's pushing 30, just like me. And the sheer overreach of him shoving his way in among legitimate music critics when he doesn't have one iota of musical talent is just mind-boggling. Everyone must have realized that when it comes to writing about you in global media, no one has better information than Senpai does. How long does he intend to keep making money off of me? She said, looking away. Her long, abundant black hair fluttered as she moved. So it's interesting the way that this is actually written, because we don't know that it's Koharu in the beginning, right? The only clue that it's Koharu is that Koharu's on the cover with Kazusa. But they never specifically say, hey, by the way, this is Koharu and Kazusa. The first hint that we get of that is here, because she calls him senpai. When Kazusa says him, we can assume that it's Haruki, who is the reviewer. Now, the second person calling him senpai, yeah, it's definitely Haruki, and this is definitely Koharu. But it's interesting that they don't just outright say it. They make the reader kind of piece it together like this. Though she griped, the look on her face was far from displeased. In fact, she seemed rather to be enjoying herself. Evidently, however, she was not finished complaining. And what's the deal, coming all the way to the concert and then not bothering to visit backstage? Did it not occur to him that that might put a crack in our friendship? So that was what was bothering her. Well, he was in a hurry. He couldn't help that. Shut up. This always happened when there wasn't much to say. That is a shame. No, I think Kazusa has every right to be irritated that her old friend and more came all the way to the concert to write a review on her, but didn't even come say hi. No, I think that is very rude as well. He's probably having breakfast in Vienna right now. When did he start listening to Xanakis, though? A smile tugged at her lips. Her profile was, as ever, bewitchingly beautiful. Whenever the conversation turned to Kitahara-senpai, this was exactly the formula. While her words and attitude were prickly, that rosy blush always came into her cheeks in the end. So the narrator, talking about Haruki as Kitahara-senpai, lets us know that the narrator is loosely Koharu. Obviously, there are more things to the narration that maybe aren't Koharu's exact thoughts, but the narration is largely coming from Koharu, which I think is another really cool way to have framed this chapter. Her name was Kazusa Toma. These days, she was one of the leading pianists in Japan. No, in the world. At present, she was in the midst of a North American tour. While she had settled upon Japan as her dwelling place at the wishes of her ailing mother, Europe and North America remained her principal battlefields. And so, every year from spring to summer, she went on tour. In between, she performed with various famous orchestras and recorded. Her CDs and high-res recordings met with top-of-the-line demand for the genre. She lacked nothing in ability. She reached 4th place in a competition run by the person who had been called the Poet of Piano, 2nd place in that of an exemplary Russian composer. Her frustration at failing to reach the top led her to polish that which was already polished, bringing her technique to a sheen that was acknowledged as the best in the modern world. And very few pianists could match her when it came to playing passionate or lyrical pieces. Dude, can you imagine Kazusa playing lyrical music? Oh my god, that would be so good. I would just cry immediately. Oh, jeez. As for her few weak points, there were the occasional flickers of moodiness and caprice that she inherited from her mother, and her extreme hatred of the mass media, which she never shied from expressing in the strongest terms. Of course, tickets from her concerts sold out the moment they went on sale, around the world. Her fans were countless. There were also a certain number of people who, despite not being fans of classical music in general, would always buy her CDs, simply because they were hers. Those whose hearts had been stolen by this mysterious beauty. Now, I feel like it sounds cheesy and silly, right? But think about everyone who plays White Album 2. How many people playing White Album 2 were classical music fans to begin with? Probably not a whole lot, is my guess. But how many people would buy every single classic music CD that Aqua Plus put out as long as Kazusa's name and face were on it? Probably a lot. So I'm just saying, this is absolutely the case. Her long, double-edged eyes, her straight nose, her lips that, while on the thin side, excited a certain intellectual desire. What does that mean? What does that mean? Her thin lips excited an intellectual desire. Not a perverted desire. No. An intellectual desire. What a silly line. Her figure, which any Hollywood actress would envy. Well-shaped, voluptuous breasts, a firm waist, a tight, gently sloping bottom. I'm like staring into the camera like I'm in the office right now. I just want you to know. When they talk about like, oh, this is how men write women, and then you read those really stupid excerpts from books, this is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. What a silly description for a woman. I'm not saying you can't describe a woman's beauty, but like, I've read a lot of authors that actually do women justice. This is just silly. This is so silly. I can't read this with a straight face. My God. He's not wrong. Listen, he's not wrong. But it's too blatant. It just throws me off while reading. And that beguiling jet black hair, taken right from the book of the Yamato Nadeshiko ideal, falling straight down her graceful back like a waterfall. So cheesy. Blech, so cheesy. Her previous record, released in a limited quantity of 1,000 copies, sold out in moments. The image of her printed on the large-sized jacket, smiling, garbed in a deep indigo kimono patterned with fluttering, weeping cherry petals, was worthy of hanging on any wall. Even fans without a record player had bought it, and it was still fetching bids of more than 10 times its original price in auctions. Reminds me of the limited WA2 records that they have released. They released a Kazusa Setsuna soundtrack record, and they've released the Encore CD as a record. And yes, they are going for 10 times the price. Even the wealthy patrons eating their breakfast here at the Hyatt House, male and female, young and old, were distracted, continually sending little glances her way. Yes, with this personification of ultimate Eastern beauty, with something Slavic mixed in, contrasting with my own smoother face. Again, Koharu talking. Because Kazusa has a slightly angled face, like really high cheekbones and a really stronger jaw, I would say. At least that's my impression of Kazusa. Sitting right here in a sleeveless knee-length dress with a pattern of purple flowers, her shapely shoulders bared, her beautiful legs crossed, elegantly sipping at her latte. It was only natural that one should be captivated. Even if that latte had had 6 sugar cubes dropped into it. Still so cute, still so unhealthy. Still, she and I were accustomed to this state of things now. Not that I was accustomed to her beauty. I wasn't sure I ever would be. By the way, Miss Manager, what's the schedule for today? As you know, your 2-month North American tour will come to an end with your next performance in Philadelphia, but that is 10 days away. The next several days are free time for you, Kazusa-san. Awesome. As for today, there's not anything in particular in the morning, and in the evening, you'll be rehearsing in the studio. Nothing in particular, huh? She looked a little downcast. That idiot. Could have stayed for breakfast at least. You know that wouldn't have been possible. It wouldn't have been convenient. No, it definitely would have been possible. Haruki's just not the best at maintaining the friendships. And, like I always say, he doesn't have to remain friends. They don't have to remain in contact. A lot of stuff happened between them, and that's fine. We don't know. We don't exactly know what their relationship is at this point in the novel. What we do know is Kazusa is really disappointed with Haruki's actions, and from her and Koharu's perspectives, seems like it was a bit rude. She was the one who had gotten him the job. She knew that. Not that I couldn't understand how she felt. And seeing such a desolate, lonely look on her face on his account, well, my past affection for him notwithstanding, it made me want to tear him apart. Koharu's so brutal. After some further brooding, she spoke again. Guess I'll just loaf around the hotel room then. Oh, there it was, the song of the shut-in. There may not be much time, but we could visit the Lincoln Memorial or... Nah, I don't care about statues of old guys. Referring to one of the founding fathers as an old guy? Oh dear. Oh dear, how could she? How about a walk around Georgetown then? The atmosphere is supposed to be lovely there. You can find streets with lovely atmospheres anywhere. I understand there's a nice macaron place in the area. Macarons! Ding! Her ears perked right up. Oh, that sounds delicious. I should go get some myself. You could practically see dog ears sprouting from the top of her head. She was so easy to win over with sweets. Right, we're going. Lead the way, Koharu-chan. And finally, for the first time in this entire fan novel, we hear Koharu's name. So if you were kind of unsure beforehand, now you're 100% sure that the person that Kazusa's with, Kazusa's current manager, is Koharu, which is a really interesting development, and I love it. So then, moving on to The Missing Score Part 2. And we get to find out a little bit more about what's really going on, since they are no longer purposefully leaving the reader in the dark. I, Koharu Sugiura, work as personal manager to Kazusa Toma, a pianist with Yoko Toma offices. I am 3 years younger than she is, which made me her junior at Hojo High School. Kitahara-senpai was a close male friend and classmate of hers in high school. Ha! Close male friend. That is simplifying the situation. Kazusa-san, Kitahara-senpai, and a third friend, Setsuna Ogiso, all came together and performed at the school festival in their 3rd year. The show went down in legend, the tale told from generation to generation of new high school students. Also, just want to point out the names here are so different. Look at the honorifics for each one. Kitahara-senpai, all right? Because he's getting the extra respect because he is older than her and was her senpai at work. Kazusa-san, because she really got to know Kazusa only after this whole ordeal happened and they were working professionals, and so the san is very respectful. And then just Setsuna Ogiso, she gets no honorific. It's just her full name. It's just interesting. It's very interesting the way she depicts all 3 of them in that way. In the interval between that and graduation, Kitahara-senpai and Setsuna-san were dating, as I understand. Hey, look, we got the san added in this one. Kazusa-san, desiring to become a professional pianist, made up her mind to cross to Vienna, where her mother, director Yoko, lived after graduation. But as far as I'm aware, on the day of the graduation ceremony, something happened between Kitahara-senpai and Kazusa-san. And when Kitahara-senpai and Setsuna-san went to Narita Airport to see Kazusa-san off, something else happened. It was the kiss. It was the sad kiss. Left behind, Kitahara-senpai and Setsuna-san spent a long time locked in a cold war before beginning to date again. And 5 years after moving to Europe, Kazusa-san was crowned with a high rank in an international competition and gave a celebratory performance in Japan. I understand that all sorts of things happened between the three of them at that time, but ultimately, Kitahara-senpai and Setsuna-san were married. Kazusa-san remained to the two of them as a dear friend and an even dearer thorn in their sides. They're all thorns in each other's sides, let's be realistic. Interesting that we're getting this summary from Koharu's very limited perspective of the situation, though. I do find that very interesting, because we know everything that went on, right? Koharu knows something that went on, and her whole placeholders of something happened. Very interesting to read. I was, well, a friend of Kitahara-senpai's, starting when he was in his 3rd year of college. A friend, sure, a friend. A friend with a very big crush. The point being that my position is a bit strange. In the autumn of my 3rd year in high school, a friend of mine, Mihoko, confessed her feelings to Kitahara-senpai, who was working as her cram school teacher. He rejected her in very harsh terms. The shock to Mihoko was so great that she stopped leaving her house entirely. Very stupid, very dumb, such an overreaction to a little crush on someone she barely even knew. Infuriated that he should send my friend into such a state at the most crucial point when it came to reaching college, I went to university myself, waited at the front gate, and made my strongest objection to him personally. That was how we first met. At first, I thought he was very cold. After that, through conversing and interacting with him at our workplace, I came to see that he was earnest, kind in spite of his bluntness, and, to be honest, I started to fall for him. That was a dangerous situation. Thinking back on it now, I was not the only woman jerked around by Kitahara-senpai during his Cold War with Setsuna. But we can set that topic aside. Now, I disagree on this point. I do not feel like Koharu was jerked around at all. She got a crush on him, and he wasn't mean to her. That's literally all it was. He didn't get her hopes up. He didn't, mess around here and there. No. Don't think about it like that. You had a crush, and he didn't accept it. That's fine. That's life. That happens. He really is a nuisance for all his blustering and self-important logic-driven arguments. Though I believe he's sincere as well. I know that Kazusa-san holds the most complicated feelings of all in the matter, so there's nothing more for me to say. Kazusa-san and I got to know each other at Kitahara-senpai and Setsuna-san's wedding. We were sitting at the same table, in fact. Hey, were you the girl Haruki cheated with? Excuse me? Oh boy. Oh wait, no, that's opposite. It should be, oh god, Koharu accusing Kazusa. I guess it could work either way, depending. If in this canon, Haruki did get with Koharu, then yeah. But in this canon, Haruki got with Kazusa. This less than ideal opening started us on a somewhat heated discussion, which then turned to a lively chat over just how insensitive and cruel a man Kita-Haruka-senpai could be. And ultimately, we hit it off. What a meeting. What a first day. After that, as I was seeking employment, I was scouted by Yoko Toma offices for my foreign language skills and confidence in negotiations. I have gone along on every one of her concert tours since, even during her extended stays in Vienna for European tours. Very cool job to have, in my opinion. Oh my gosh. Traveling the world with a world-renowned musician. So cool. She is brilliant. The sort who can do anything she puts her mind to. But there is also something precarious about her. I worry about leaving her on her own. There were also times near the beginning when her selfishness and whims wore me out and angered me internally. Which I feel like is a problem for anyone working with any of the Tomas, either Yoko or Kazusa. They're definitely greedy people. But I believe that, at her foundation, she is enormously kind and caring. For all her bluffing, she is quite timid, and she gets lonely easily. So I don't want to leave her alone. Director Yoko herself has asked me to help her. So, as you see, she needs me. Interesting, very, very interesting to think about. That's exactly what she had told Haruki, right? She was told Haruki, she needs you. Of course, this is in Kazusa normal, Kazusa true kind of thing. She needs you. She needs your help. You're the only one. And now, Koharu, who has been dubbed Mini Haruki, is the one helping Kazusa. That is such a beautiful and cool parallel. I love that. Olivia Macaron was incredible. The macarons in their vivid array of colors were slightly fragrant, and each bite melted in our mouths. Oh, God, I want one. Her purchases baffled me, though. When it came to North American treats, macarons were on the subtle side in terms of sweetness. Why such a quantity? That said, I wasn't going to make her carry them, given that her hands were the tools of her trade, and it wouldn't do to let anything happen to them. The bags might be lighter than they looked, but carrying was my job. Still, part of me did wish that she would stand in my shoes for a second before buying. Koharu, such a hard worker. My next thought was to visit Dean and DeLuca across the street for tea, but she nixed that idea. I had tea this morning, so we rambled around instead. I just remembered there's a flea market being held nearby. Why don't we go take a look? When we got there, though, kind of shabby, huh? Not sure why it's so famous. And as usual, she put it right out there. The flea market was being held in a school parking lot, peopled heavily by locals. The scale was pretty small, but it was well known for its bargains on antiques. Maybe it wasn't the best place to take someone like her, who didn't have much of an eye for value in accessories or buildings. Flea market, that is such a random place. I love flea markets, don't get me wrong. But it definitely doesn't seem like the type of place Kazusa would want to come visit. With this running through my mind, I glanced to the side, only to find that she had vanished. Startled, I turned around and found her caught in the booth of an elderly man who was selling dusty old books. She had her hands thrust into a pile of paper sheaves crammed carelessly into a cardboard box, wearing disposable gloves and paging carefully so as to avoid doing any damage. See anything you like? Wordlessly, she pulled out a single scrap of paper, quite old and worn, and folded in half. Was that? That's a musical score. Yet again, complete disregard. Evidently, she was entirely in her own world. At moments like this, my own voice became words out of reach. Interesting comparison, considering that is a very romantic song. But what value could there be in a filthy, worn-out bit of sheet music? The music notes written on it were scarce. The lines were shaky. It was a mess. A child appeared to have doodled on it in colored pencil. It seemed to be a drawing of many falling stars. How is this even possible? After her lengthy contemplation, the voice that escaped her was shaking slightly. Her eyes were practically glittering. Sir, where did you get this sheet music? It was left behind by an old Jewish lady who passed away recently. I don't know any more than that. So blunt. The man looked ill-natured, with thick glasses, and the corners of his mouth tugged down in perpetual frown. Very interesting. So, we have discovered some sheet music that Kazusa clearly recognizes, but that's all we know right now. So before we deep dive into the who, what, where, when, why, I think this is a good place to stop for now. So, thank you ever so much for listening to this reading of this White Album 2 light novel, and I'll be back with the next part shortly. Until then, hope you take care. See you!